Don in London, hello. August 9th, 2009. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour, trying to be perfect, never so. Workaholic, relationshipaholic, gymaholic, photo-taking-aholic these days, I suspect. I love taking photos. It's part of what I do, which is useful for me and maybe one or two other people. And recovery from addiction, well, big subject. Millions of people have problems with dependency, either on substance or behaviour. And we wonder, how on earth did we ever get to that state of being addicted without even realising we're getting there? And the difficulty is, if we keep doing something over and over again, which doesn't apparently harm us in the first instance, but over time becomes a primary dependence, like drinking alcohol for me, where I couldn't stop. I had a physical demand for it. My brain said, you need more of this all the time. Emotionally, it was keeping me obliterated. I know there's no such word. Or just in oblivion. And I didn't know how to get out of it. And it got to a point where I was drinking 24/7. I'd lost the lot and the plot. So just one day at a time, I found myself in recovery for a little while, but it's always in the day, making a life plan one day long. That's for me. And I go to a fellowship which helps me, and at this fellowship I cannot speak for. It's called Alcoholics Anonymous, and the fellowship is robust. It stands on its own 2 or 3 feet, which are unity, recovery and service. Those are the 3 feet, if you like, unity, recovery and service. And it offers or suggests a 12-step action program of attitude and behavioural change. So that sounds like gobbledygook, but if you can imagine what it's like, from one day cannot stop drinking to the next day learning how, very slowly, not to drink a day at a time. And as is often said, it's the first drink that did the damage. And my first drink was when I was not even 10 years old. Before that, apparently it was my granddad. I always blame my father, but it wasn't. Anyway, I don't blame anybody these days. But he gave me a whiskey and orange and I promptly threw it up. I don't remember that. Maybe if I had, I might have thought differently about my drinking behaviour. And it took me to the extremes of awfulness in the end, where I was completely distorted. I had no clue who I was or what the rest of the world wanted from me, or that I had an option to live my life and be happy. I had none of those particular opportunities left. So when I found a fellowship which could actually help me, I was not delighted, because I was still in denial, wanting to go back to old patterns of drinking where I would get happiness guaranteed. And the trouble is, over-reliance on anything means that we are dependent, and maybe I'm dependent on coffee and taking photographs. And maybe I've become dependent on a fellowship, or I lean on a fellowship which helps me, and that's the gift. So AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't speak for it, never can. Full of unique, authentic people, even when they're angry, or when they're sad, or jolly, or joyful, or happy. We are what we are on any given day, and it's how we deal with it which is important. So AA, the AA preamble I share here because it helps me slow down and puts some focus on what I want to say. So AA, the preamble or statement said at every meeting I go to, unless we forget. Alcoholic, that reminds me, I'm going to a meeting called Lest We Forget Later. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So important in that is the only requirement for membership, which I could fully sign up for, was a desire not to drink anymore. But I was fooling myself most of the time, because if I could have found a way back to indulge without getting caught out again, I would have gone for it. And the idea that I could control my drinking is now totally redundant in my own understanding of the disease of addiction. And that final one where it talks about our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Just by turning up to a meeting these days, it is considered that we are helping other alcoholics because we're part of something and we're included. And this book, As Bill Sees It, which I share here, I want to read this one first rather than the Daily Reflections, but it's all about the same thing in August. It's about being willing to make amends to other people and making a list of people we have harmed, and then wondering what next. Well, that's step 9, next month. So step 8, all about doing the honest thing, understanding where we're coming from, even though we might be a bit bamboozled by it all. Anyway, As Bill Sees It, page 172, this matter of honesty. And for me, God is truth. So when I read this, that's what I have in mind. Only God can fully know what absolute honesty is. Therefore, each of us has to conceive what this great ideal may be, to the best of our ability. Fallible as we are, and will be in this life, it would be a presumption to suppose that we could ever really achieve absolute honesty. The best we can do is to strive for a better quality of honesty. Sometimes we need to place love ahead of indiscriminate, factual honesty. We cannot, under the guise of perfect honesty, cruelly and unnecessarily hurt others. Always one must ask, what is the best and most loving thing I can do? And I'm very wary of that, because unless I check it out with somebody who I feel can understand where I'm coming from, I could omit so much of what is true and what is honest. And honesty informs me how I am today, and it also informs other people whether they want to be involved with me or not. And if you've got intuition, it can be the very devil, because it can easily become paranoia when people don't tell us the truth. So what goes on in other people's minds and doesn't turn into behaviour, well, what can I say? It's difficult. It's very difficult. We're making progress, not perfect. But you know what is important to me is I get the truth as much as I can and share it as best I can, but not to harm other people intentionally. I actually think that it's probably, or feel, not telling the truth early enough builds up and compounds more problems than we can ever imagine. Anyway, going on to daily reflections, 1 page a day, which is quite, I keep looking at my clock, I'm conscious of time. August 9th, of all persons we had harmed, and became willing to make amends to them all. This is step 8, which is what I sort of focus on in August. 8th month, 8th step. One of the key words in the 8th step is the word all. I am not free to select a few names from the list and disregard others. It is a list of all persons I have harmed. I can see immediately that this step entails forgiveness, because if I'm not willing to forgive someone, there is little chance I will place his name on the list. Before I place the first name on my list, I said a little prayer. I forgive anyone and everyone who has ever harmed me at any time, under any circumstances. Because for me, actually, I do believe, even when people are harming me, or have, they were doing it with the best of intention, most likely their own personal safety. Or they just didn't like me. Well, that's all right. It is well for me to contemplate a small but very significant 2-letter word every time the Lord's Prayer is said. The word is as. I ask, forgive us all our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. In this case, as means in the same manner. I am asking to be forgiven in the same manner that I forgive others. So if I'm false, why should anybody forgive me? If I'm, as I say this portion of the prayer, if I'm harbouring hatred or resentment, I'm inviting more resentment when I should be calling on the spirit of forgiveness. And forgiving everyone every day, including me, as best I can, and facing up to the consequences, is all part of serenity, good and bad, joy and sad. So the serenity prayer to God, all good conscience, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference just for today.